at 9:30. So we go ahead and get started. And we'll start with roll call, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. District 2? District 3? Banning? Beaumont?
Here.
Calimesa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Cathedral City?
Here.
Coachella? Desert Hot Springs?
Present.
Lake Elsinore?
Here.
Palm Desert?
Here.
Palm Springs? San Jacinto? San Jacinto? Riverside?
Here.
Wildemar?
Here.
District 2? District 2?
Yes, here.
Thank you. Palm Springs?
Present.
Thank you. San Jacinto? District 3?
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Sorry, people were joining, so I wanted to call them. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and follow after me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started, let me just read a couple notes here. Please remember to silence your communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. And for those of you on Zoom, if you'd like to make public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen and look for the more option and then raise the hand button on the screen. And for those of you calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. So let's begin with public comments. Do we have any public comments for items not listed on the agenda?
I did not receive any written comments, and I am not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, great. Any additions or revisions?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on a consent calendar item before we take a vote or to pull an item for later discussion?
Calamese move to approve.
San Jacinto second.
Oh.
And roll
District
call.
2? District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
Beaumont?
Yes.
Banning? Calimesa?
Yes.
Canyon Lake?
Aye.
Cathedral City?
Yes.
Coachella? Desert Hot Springs?
Aye.
Lake Elsinore?
Aye.
Palm Desert?
Yes.
Palm Springs?
Aye.
San Jacinto?
Yes.
Riverside?
Aye.
Wildemar?
Aye.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes.
Okay, great. We'll move on to item 7, the state and federal legislative update. And we'll hear a report from David Knudsen.
Good morning, Chair White and committee members. I'm pleased to be with you this morning. Today, I will provide you with an update on state and federal legislative actions. Governor Newsom had until October 10th to sign or veto bills passed by the legislature. By the close of the legislative session, 836 proposals were sent by state lawmakers to the governor. Of those bills, Governor Newsom signed 770 new California laws and vetoed 66 bills by the deadline. One of the vetoed bills was AB 1147, authored by Assembly Transportation Committee Chair Laura Friedman. AB 1147 was one of 3 bills introduced in the legislature this year related to reforming SB 375, passed in 2008, which directs the California Air Resources Board to set regional targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In the governor's veto message, he acknowledges that although AB 1147 seeks to improve transparency to the Sustainable Community Strategies process, it does not require or incentivize regional and local governments to make land use decisions that change development and transportation patterns. AB 1147 would have required each metropolitan planning organization, like SCAG, to create a 2035 target action plan, develop a new block grant program to ensure MPOs achieve their 2035 goals, and would have required local governments to make a good faith effort to take actions that support their MPO sustainable community strategies. These strategies would likely have included a review of each region's vehicle miles traveled reduction strategies. The governor concluded his veto letter with the intent to engage the legislature to pass a comprehensive transportation package in 2022. This transportation package will likely include items that the legislature and the governor could not finalize an agreement on before the legislative session concluded on September 10th, including the allocation of $4.2 billion in Proposition 1A high-speed rail bond funding and all of the new transportation general fund spending actions, which were reverted to the general fund. Now that the first year of the legislative session has concluded, the legislative affairs team will begin reviewing the board-adopted legislative platform and take into consideration emergency policies at the state and federal levels. Within the next few months, staff will bring forward the draft 2022 platform for the commission's review and consideration in preparation for next year. On the federal side, Congress continues to simultaneously negotiate and consider the budget reconciliation package, a corresponding debt limit increase, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and the federal fiscal year 2022 appropriations bill. You'll recall that Congress approved a 1-month extension of the FAST Act in late September, and members will either have to pass another extension or pass the surface transportation reauthorization legislation before October 31st to keep federal transportation programs funded. Speaker Pelosi indicated over the weekend that a vote was likely this week on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Last week, the Senate Appropriations Committee released their draft appropriations bills for each of their subcommittees, including the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, or THUD bill. In the Senate's THUD bill, the U.S. Department of Transportation would receive $90.5 billion in total budgetary resources for fiscal year 2022. That's about a $3.8 billion more than the fiscal year 2021 enacted level. The Senate Appropriations Bill provides $49.9 billion for Federal Highway Administration. This would include $839 million more than federal fiscal year 2021, $552 million for the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement CARISI program, $147 million more than fiscal year 2021, which can be used for a broad range of safety and capital projects such as station and platform improvements, rail line relocation or improvements, highway, rail grade crossing improvement projects, and planning and environmental work. The Senate's THUD bill also addresses climate change by providing $300 million for a new grant program to improve the resiliency of transportation infrastructure vulnerable to current and future weather events and natural disasters, including sea level rise, coastal erosion, extreme weather, earthquakes, and flooding. Like the House Appropriations Package for FY 2022 from earlier this year, the Senate funding is subject to transportation dollars that would be authorized by the $1.2 trillion 5-year bipartisan infrastructure bill passed by the Senate in August and is currently pending in the House. As a result of the Senate THUD appropriations bill, we learned that RCTC's community project funding requests for $3 million each for the I-10 Highland Springs Interchange Improvements Project and the Moreno Valley Marchfield Station Improvements Project, both submitted by Senator Padilla, unfortunately were not included in the bill released last week. While we are disappointed that our funding request did not make it into the bill, we're thankful to Senator Padilla for submitting our request to the Appropriations Committee for consideration. We'll continue to engage in the process and bring back new information to the Commission. This concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, this time I'll entertain a motion.
This is a receive and file item, so it doesn't require a motion.
Oh, okay. I thought the forward to commission. That's fine. So we'll move on to item number 8. Coachella Valley San Gorgonio Pass Rail Corridor Planning Study Update and Amendment to the HDR Agreement. Sheldon Peterson, please.
Yes, good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having me here today to give you an update on one of my favorite subjects, the Coachella Valley Rail Project. We had an overwhelming success with our comment period, which is going to lead us into some actions here. Today, I'll do a brief overview and kind of go through that effort. Next slide. Before I get into the details, I want to cover the several staff recommendations that are here. The first off is amendment number 7 with HDR to complete the work. It would be an additional $259,000 to the project. We will need the executive director to get approval to execute the grant on behalf of the commission. In order to line up the funds, we'll need an allocation of $259,000 of state transit assistance funds. Once we get that allocation, we'll need to make adjustments to the fiscal year budget and amend the short range transit plan to line up all the funding for this extension. In addition, we asked the committee to adopt a resolution that will allow the commission to approve the allocation of the STIP funds that were identified at the last commission meeting, as well as the ITIP funds to get us ready for tier 2 of the environmental document. So with those recommendations, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide to talk a little bit about the project. This is the project map. Some of you have seen it, many of you probably have, but it goes from Los Angeles through Riverside on its way to Indio and Coachella. We're looking for an intercity rail passenger service with at least 2 daily round trips and a potential of up to 6 stations east of Colton. Next slide. We're working hard on this project and have been for a number of years. We completed our alternatives analysis in 2016. We spent the last 5 years or so grinding with the FRA to get our program level tier 1 environmental document ready, as well as our service development plan. That'll lead us into the next phase of conceptual engineering with the tier 2 environmental document, and then eventually final design, construction, and operations. Next slide. So a quick overview of the timeline since we last gave an update. It was right before we released the documents for public comment. They were available from May 21st through July 6th. We had 2 virtual public hearings. Part of this process is to identify a preferred alternative for this project. Quick spoiler alert, the way the document's looking is it's going to be an option 1 that includes both the Indio and Coachella station. So the full 6 stations along the corridor that gives us the most ridership and options for this route. We're currently in the final preparations of the tier 1 environmental document. FRA has given us response to comments here shortly. We'll try to wrap up that document, bring it back to the commission for a record of decision in early of 2021. We're also moving forward with the service development plan, looking at all the operation issues. The drafts have been completed and are with FRA and Caltrans for review. We're hoping to get those documents back and finalized hopefully by the end of this calendar year. Next slide. Quick overview on the outreach activities. We really did a great job of trying to get the word out. We held 11 stakeholder briefings. Like I mentioned, 2 virtual public hearings. There were over 3,000 page visits. And the big number here is over 504 individual comments received for this document, which was extensive. When we looked at other corridors, similar to the Coast Rail Corridor, for example, several years back, they went out for public outreach and really only received about 150 some comments. So the number of comments is impressive on this, and it just goes to show the interest that people have in this project. Next slide. So we did a quick review of the comment distributions by local cities, both in San Bernardino and the Coachella Valley. Strong representations from Palm Springs and Indio and Palm Desert, as well as multiple comments from the Pass area, as well as Redlands and Colton. So we had a strong response as far as residents. We see a lot of interest in this program. This slide doesn't capture all the cities, but it was just a quick overview that the consultant was able to put together. So I appreciate all the individuals who provided comments and the city members who reached out to their constituents to get these comments. Next slide. quick overview of the summary of comments. So we got letters back from agencies. 9 agencies submitted letters, each with multiple comments in those. So we had over 62 comments from the agencies. Overall supportive was over 78% or generally supportive. A lot of them have issues that they want us to address or mitigate in future efforts, but overall the majority were supportive. There's over 15 organizations provided comments. And the big number here is over 280 individuals voiced concerns and support for this project, with over 400 unique comments. And like I mentioned, over 82% supportive of this effort. So that's really encouraging. It gives us great momentum as we continue this project and move it forward. On the next slide, just shows a quick overview of the agencies that submitted comments. So we did get comments from SBCTA, San Bernardino County, cities both in Coachella, Calamasa, Indio, as well as the EPA and Highway Patrol. There's a long list of organizations, so we got great support from the Visit Greater Palm Springs, the Palm Springs Convention Visitor Bureau, as well as a lot of organizations in the area. We also got comment letters from Union Pacific Railroad and Amtrak, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, as well as the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians. So great response on the letters. All the comments will be addressed in the document. The next slide. So as we address these comments, there were a number of master responses. It's kind of a unique term that is used. If people are asking very similar questions, what we do is we do a comprehensive response, and then on the individual comments, we refer back to that response. So see down the list, a majority of the concerns were worried about or concerned about the station locations, the conceptual nature of a build alternative versus option components, which basically there were people worried that once we approve this document, we'll go out for construction. That is not the case. There'll be additional opportunities for comments with future environmental documents. Several communities had concerns about freight train volume associated with this project, as well as quiet zones, which all will be addressed and mitigated as the process moves forward. There are concerns with wildlife corridors, and then the details of train trip frequencies, train trip durations, questions on the overall program funding and program timing, trying to make sure we had efficient transit connections, and also looking at locomotive technology. Are we doing the Tier 4 diesel or look to future opportunities with zero emissions? And then also concerns on environmental justice were addressed. So these master responses really captured a majority of the concerns that came through in the documents. A lot of them will be addressed. Next slide. So just as an overall comment summary, both staff at RCTC, FRA, and Caltrans were really appreciative of the large number of comments. Formal responses will be addressed in the appendix of the final environmental document, so every comment will be responded to. The main takeaway, and this is kind of the legal note here, is that none of the comments received provided new information that warrants recirculation of the draft Tier 1 program EIR/EIS under CEQA, nor preparation of a supplement document under NEPA. So basically that summarizes the document was well prepared and addressed all the concerns at this point. There's no need to change any of the details of the document. We're just going to summarize it and put that into the final document. So that's really encouraging. The majority of the comments were supportive of the project. As I mentioned earlier, most of the issues with specific environmental concerns were addressed in the details of the Tier 1 document. And any items that weren't concerned with the details available, the challenge was we haven't done the conceptual engineering needed in Tier 2 to fully mitigate or identify the concerns. So this next document will be really important for us to make sure we get into the details, identify where the tracks will be, and make sure the mitigations are appropriate for all those changes. Next slide. So as we do talk about next steps, as mentioned at the commission meeting and emails, RCTC is aggressively seeking funding for the Tier 2 effort, which is estimated approximately $60 million. We've lined up very positive news on the ITIP funding of $10 million. Commission approved the STIP funding last time at $15 million. Staff is actively seeking a CRISI grant from the federal government of $20 million. And then there's also SRA or state rail assistance funds we're looking at grants of $6 to $10 million for that. As we call out, we do need letters of support for the CRISI grant, which will be due by November 12th. And because of all the positive support we got from individuals, we've actually set up a website link to encourage those individuals to raise their hands in support of the CRISI grant that we could then provide as part of our grant application. So that link is www.rctc.org/support, which if we could share that and get as many people who are excited about the program as we are to go ahead and voice that opinion, we could go ahead and improve the grant. On the next slide, just we're listening to our commissioners and starting to talk a little bit about branding. We're doing some initial discussions to determine how to best approach it. For this round of grant applications, we'll probably keep the same name and logo, but as we kick off the tier 2 process, we'll spend some time to figure out the best way to name and market this program as we move it forward. On the screen are some of the other logos from some of the other capital corridors in San Joaquin's across the state, as well as Lausanne, which recently updated their logo, which I need to improve on the next slide. But it is an important discussion. So just want to let you know that staff has started it internally, and we'll definitely be bringing back information as we move it forward. With the next slide, just want to once again request that you approve the staff recommendations, and then I'll open up the discussion to any questions on the comments and other items. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheldon. I see Commissioner Middleton, you have your hand raised. You're up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Sheldon, thank you for that great report. A couple of questions. Could you put together a draft letter of support for the CRISI grant that could be circulated to all of us so that we can ask our various agencies to provide a supportive letter?
Yeah, absolutely. Our legislative affair team is working on it. I think we have a draft ready to go. We'll resend that out to everybody.
All right. And my congratulations. This is an outstanding effort, an incredibly important effort. I think it's important for us to be very strategic in terms of identifying every opportunity to advance support for this project. And so I thank you for the work that you're doing on that. In terms of branding, I frankly like the logo that has been drafted. It's very clear. It talks about connecting the San Gorgonio Pass and the Coachella Valley. No one has to wonder where it is that we're going if you look at that logo, and that helps to create enthusiasm for the project. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Condor, I see you are up next.
Yeah, thank you, Sheldon. It may have been in the report and I may have missed it, but where are the two stations that are being planned, the Coachella and Gorgonio? Do we already own some land there? Are we going to have to buy land for the parking?
Yes, for the most part, we do not own any land through RCTC in the Coachella Valley. The city of Indio has a parcel in Indio that they've identified through a feasibility study that they would like to site the station at. Palm Springs has an existing station with property available, and I believe CVAG owns some property out there as well that could potentially be used for a station. But at this time, RCTC does not own any property out there. The tier 2 phase will look at station siting. Probably want to be one of the first steps to make sure we know exactly where those stations will end up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Harnick.
Thank you so much, Chair. And to Lisa's point about the logo, I love the graphic. I think it's great looking. And I know we're early on, as was said by Mr. Peterson, but I don't want us to forget, or anybody to forget, this connects us with way more than the past. I mean, this is a rail line that is going to take us to the coast and to LA and everywhere else. So we don't want to lose sight in that it's really connecting Coachella Valley to the entire Southern California area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gregory.
Thank you so much. Yeah, real quick, I just wanted, of course, add my voice and thanks for the work that's been done and the support of the rail line. I do think that a little tweak to the rebranding would be a good idea to note that it also goes to Los Angeles. But I also wanted to just suggest before this goes to the commission that maybe the PowerPoint be tweaked just a little bit, because it does say the record of decision is expected in early 2021, and obviously you mean 2022. So just didn't want to go to the commission with that on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, questions? I don't see any other hands raised. And I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Second, we'll move it.
Palm Desert, second.
And roll call, please.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Cathedral City,
Yes.
Desert Hot Springs,
Aye.
Lake Elsinore,
Aye.
Palm Desert,
Yes.
Palm Springs,
Aye.
San Jacinto,
Aye.
Riverside,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8 passes.
Thank you. Next up is the executive director report.
I have no updates for you today, other than stay dry today and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this next item is commissioner comments. Item provides the opportunity for brief announcements or comments on items of matters of general interest. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? All right. With that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. The next meeting will be 9:30 a.m. November 22nd. And we'll see you all then.